Every time you check out at a store, every time a package arrives at your door, every time inventory moves through a warehouse anywhere on Earth, somewhere, a beep happens. A red laser hits a pattern of lines, and a computer instantly knows what you bought, how much it costs, and what to reorder. It's the most scanned object in human history. Billions of times a day. Several trillion times a year. And yet almost nobody knows where it came from. This is the story of two graduate students who overheard a conversation they weren't supposed to hear, drew lines in the sand on a Miami beach, sold their patent for $15,000, and unknowingly built the entire foundation of modern retail. The year was 1948. The place was the Drexel Institute of Technology in Philadelphia, known today as Drexel University. Two graduate students were walking past the dean's office when they heard something interesting through the door. Inside, the president of a Philadelphia grocery chain called Food Fair was begging the engineering department for help. His name was Samuel Friedland, and he had a problem. His supermarkets were growing fast, but his checkout lines were a disaster. Cashiers had to read every single price tag and type the number into a register. It was slow. It caused mistakes. And it made tracking inventory nearly impossible. Friedland wanted to know, was there any way to read product information automatically? The engineering department politely turned him down. The problem was too vague, too commercial, not the kind of thing a serious institution worked on. But one of the graduate students who'd overheard the conversation couldn't let it go. His name was Bernard Silver. He was 24 years old. And the next day, he told his friend and fellow grad student, a 27-year-old electrical engineering instructor named Norman Joseph Woodland, about what he'd heard. Woodland was intrigued. Together, they decided to take the problem on themselves. Their first attempt didn't work. Woodland tried using ultraviolet sensitive ink to mark products. They built a prototype, but the ink faded, the cost was too high, and the system was unreliable. Frustrated, Woodland did something dramatic. He dropped out of his graduate program. He moved to Miami to stay with his grandfather. And he gave himself one job: figure this out. For weeks, he sat on the beach thinking. And one afternoon in early 1949, the idea came to him. He'd grown up as a Boy Scout, and he remembered learning Morse code, those dots and dashes that could carry any message just by varying length. What if you took Morse code, he thought, and extended it visually? Instead of dots and dashes, you'd have thin and thick lines. He pushed his fingers into the sand and pulled down 4 lines. Too thin, too thick. Then more lines, in different patterns. He had just drawn what would become the first barcode in human history. On a Miami beach. Without realizing he was about to change global commerce forever. There was one problem with lines on the sand. A cashier at a grocery store wouldn't know which direction to scan from. If the product was sideways, the scanner couldn't read it. So Woodland made one more adjustment. He took his straight lines and bent them into a circle. Concentric rings, like a bullseye. Now the pattern could be read from any angle. In October of 1949, Silver and Woodland filed a patent application. It was titled, "With the Wonderful Blandness of Mid-Century Engineering, Classifying Apparatus and Method." The patent was finally granted 3 years later, in October 1952. They had it. The barcode existed. But there was a catch. The scanning technology of 1952 wasn't ready. To read their barcode, you needed a 500-watt light bulb and a scanner the size of a desk. It cost more than the store would save. The world wasn't ready for the barcode yet. For the next several years, Silver and Woodland tried to sell their idea. They built prototypes. They demonstrated the system to companies. Nobody bit. In 1952, Woodland took a job at IBM, partly hoping that one day IBM would develop his invention into something practical. They had the resources. They had the engineering talent. But for years, nothing happened. Eventually, the two inventors did something they would later regret. They sold their patent. The buyer was Philco, a then major American electronics company. The price was $15,000. To put that in context, $15,000 in 1952 is worth about $170,000 today. Not nothing, but for a patent that would, decades later, underpin trillions of dollars of global commerce, it was almost nothing. Silver and Woodland would never make another dollar from their invention. In 1963, Bernard Silver died. He was 38 years old. He never saw a barcode used in a real store. 11 years later, on the morning of June 26, 1974, at exactly 8:01 a.m., something happened in a small supermarket in Troy, Ohio. The store was called Marsh Supermarket. The man behind the counter was Marsh's head of research and development, Clyde Dawson. The cashier was a woman named Sharon Buchanan. Dawson reached into a shopping cart filled with various products. He pulled out a single item. He placed it on the scanner. It was a 10-pack of Wrigley's Juicy Fruit Chewing Gum. The price was 67 cents. The scanner beeped. The register displayed 67 cents. This was the first item ever sold using a barcode. 25 years after Norman Joseph Woodland drew lines in the sand on a Miami beach, the barcode had finally arrived. By the way, the original 10-pack of gum was preserved. It now sits in the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. What happened after that first scan changed everything. Within a decade, barcodes were on virtually every product in every grocery store in America. Within 2 decades, they were everywhere: books, medicine, packages, parts, ID cards, anything that needed to be tracked. The barcode made modern retail possible. Walmart's entire empire, built on tracking inventory in real time, could not exist without the barcode. Amazon's warehouse logistics, where thousands of items move per minute, cannot function without it. UPS, FedEx, every shipping company on Earth runs on barcodes. Today, several billion barcodes are scanned every single day. Globally. Across every industry. They are quite literally the most scanned object in human existence. And here's the strange truth that ties this story together. The man who drew the first one, Norman Joseph Woodland, lived to see all of it. He worked at IBM for decades, helping refine the technology. He won the National Medal of Technology in 1992. He died in 2012, at the age of 91. When he was asked, near the end of his life, whether he wished he and Silver had kept the patent, he reportedly said he was happy that his invention had become so useful to so many people. He had given the world something that quietly worked, in the background, billions of times a day, and he was at peace with that. So the next time you hear that quiet beep at a checkout, remember this. It is the distant echo of an overheard conversation in 1948, of fingers drawn through Miami sand in 1949, of a patent sold for $15,000 by 2 young men who had no idea what they were giving away. The story of the barcode isn't really a story about lines on a label. It's a story about how the most ordinary inventions, the ones that work so well we stop noticing them, can quietly hold up the entire modern world. If you enjoyed the hidden history of something you've never thought about, subscribe. Next time, we'll explore about Netflix versus Blockbuster. See you then.